when you think about modern self-improvement culture, is it more helping people actually improve their life, or does it just make it more, or does it make life more optimized and more productive, yet people are more disconnected? How do you feel that's being impacted today, and how are you kind of combating that?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think, my wife is really a big believer in just the middle way, that's not as much my way,
Define that. Brett, define that for me, the middle
yeah,
way.
I think, she would say that, there's something, to your question, she would say, and I think she's right. There's such a thing as self-help. There's such a thing as, biohacking or routines or the things that are really valuable. And there's there's an amount that's too much, right? That if you're too in your head, if you're too psychoanalyzing everything, if you're too rigid, if you're too structured, that's not good either. And so I do think there's this, middle way, and it's a balance, it's an energy. My definition of balance is really more about not staying in one area for too long, right? Not being out of balance in one area for too long. I'm not somebody who believes that you want to try to get that all perfectly matched up where your time is perfectly allocated. Um, but I do think that if you don't focus on your health or your relationships or your kids, your marriage, whatever it is, and you're only focused on your work, then and you stay over there for too long, then you're going to have problems. So I think there's different ways to describe this idea of a middle way, but it is about like kind of finding your way through it, where you do take some time to grow, and you need a lot of time to integrate. You need some time to just sort of be, because frankly, I think that's where the greatest insights are will come in, and then you need some time to be busy, and it's kind of a constant calibration.
Yeah, it's great. It's funny. We talk a lot on this show about life, and the four parts of life that I talk about is love, impact, faith, and energy. And the who's in our life that matter most. The impact is our purpose beyond our day job. Faith, something bigger than ourselves. For me, it's God. And then energy, how we show up to the world, healthy mind, body, spirit. What you just defined is everything that I believe in, and that is it's more important to be aware that you're imbalanced and to adjust course or realign, because you're always going to be imbalanced if you're doing anything worth a damn. I mean, if you're
Mhm.
building anything, any business, when you were building the gravity project with the urban development in Columbus, like, you didn't become the number one development in Columbus by not putting all your energy and effort into something. You were diving deep into making something special, something unique. And but you also had moments where you probably self-corrected. You're like, "Hey, I have been out way too much. I'm gonna make sure I take some time for my wife. We're gonna do a date night this week." Or kids and I need to go step away and go do something cool for the weekend. And that's part of life, that awareness to be able to be self-aware enough that you're recalibrating so that imbalance doesn't take you too far to where you're blowing things up.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I had a therapist early on, who told me that actually it doesn't really matter that you get it right. It's actually more important. The thing that your kids are gonna really learn the most from is watching you change, right? So whatever you did up until this point, um, only matters if you don't change, and because they're gonna have to get it wrong too. They're gonna have to change too, and if they've seen somebody do that, if they've had that example, that's actually gonna make more of a difference to them over time. So, yeah, I mean, that's the other thing that I think, we all need to do a better job of is not holding it so tightly. We're so like, and this is, back to your question about like the optimization thing. I think that really can be something that can, be problematic, and I've seen it, in my own life too, where it's like, and I'm very habits based. I'm very, I literally like, check stuff off my to-do list. I have daily routines. I know I'm going to do them. I still press the button because it feels good to say I did it. You know, I'm still like really structured, but I've learned like, if I don't work out, like I was in Costa Rica, I was surfing every day. I didn't get to the gym once, and like in my mind, I'm like, geez, I haven't been to the gym in a week, even though I'm like working
But
my
you
ass
paddled
off in the
out, your
ocean.
shoulders
Right.
and your back were getting killed.
Right, right. So, but like that used to really bother me, but now I'm like, that's okay because look what I'm doing. I'm in the water. I'm this is like so beautiful. I'm loving it. This is great. Oh, by the way, it's good to take a week off. You know, if I miss a workout or if I miss a meditation, it's okay. Like it's all gonna be okay. And some of this we just make too important. We make it mean too much. We have such expectations. We have such kind of a rigidness around how we're supposed to be that holding it a little looser, I think, can really be very freeing. And it's slippery. Like I don't really want to miss, 3 days of something because I don't want to get in a bad habit. But again, trying to like play with that a little bit more.
Yeah, I definitely have struggled with it where I when I build habits and then I gamify. And what's happening is it becomes a game to not miss. My discipline is so strict that it becomes something that when I miss it, it feels worse than having the consistency. And so you start to realize that having some grace inside of that, the older I get, the more I look at movement over workout. So I still have a
Mhm.
consistent workout almost every day, but if I'm moving, let's say I'm in the city in New York and I have a business meeting and it's one of those days where I got to be up way too early and I don't really feel like getting to the gym first thing. I'd rather have a cup of coffee, get my mental space ready and then go. Well, I'll get 20,000 steps in the city and I'm good with that. I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
moved all day. That
Yeah.
wasn't a normal movement for me. That's not a normal day, but I can find ways to make it work. Um, and even with my check boxes, because I do the same thing. I think intense personalities, you can find yourself falling into an addiction that of something healthy, but it becomes something that will become unhealthy if you let it take over. And
Yeah.
that's something we all have to learn for ourselves, right? I mean, you have to
Yeah.
learn. When you said the middle way, the one thing that I like from that is this self growth journey is super cool and you have to evolve, but you also have to be happy where you are at the same time. You have to
Yeah.
know you're right where you're supposed to be and how you build from that is really good. And I think I go through those assessments in my own life on a regular basis and we all do to some extent.
Yeah. Yeah. You do, and I think, again, you and I have kinda landed in a spot where we've learned a lot, we're integrating a lot, we're still, growing and learning, but we're probably a little bit more clear and settled than, we were when we were younger. The only way you get there is by doing it, you know? Um and it's so cliche, but, like, everything I know is just because I tried it another way, until I figured out what works and what doesn't, and things are constantly changing. The things that worked to get me here won't be the things that get me to the next spot. There will be some consistency. I mean, there are some things like meditation, which, I've been doing for the last 25 years. I'll do that for the next 25 years, I know it. So, you do start to have some things that are just sort of who you are, and it's like air and water. You just need them, you do them. Like you said, movement. Movement is really really important for me. But how I move will change. Um, I might be playing tennis until I'm in my 80s. I hope to be surfing until I'm 80s. I'm probably going to be a bit of a different skier than I was, when I was younger. I'm doing Pilates now. That's like me, maturing and realizing that, if I want to do all these fun things, I better stretch a little bit. I'm not doing it on my own. So, let me, have somebody on my calendar that's going to help me do that, build the small muscles. Things change, but yeah, you kind of only know that by trying different things and by learning, again, what works and what's no longer working.
Yeah, isn't it funny how the older we get, the more we end up doing things that we would have laughed at ourselves if we were a younger version. I was doing cat cow in the garage today, working out, and my neighbors, like teenagers, are across the street, and all I could think about is, dude, how weak do you look right now? Like you're on all fours, you're going up, you're going down. Like I started laughing at myself because I'm like, well, I know this helps. Getting ready to do a back workout. I'm definitely going to open up the hips, open up the back, and I started cracking up myself. I was like, if I was a teenager pulling out of my driveway, looking at the old guy across the street, I'd be laughing. And then I was like, yeah. And then I wake up one day and realize that he had it figured out because that dude's 47 years old and still moving like he's 10 years younger. And that's what I want in my life. I want to continue to have that movement, continue to evolve. And it's okay if we look kind of goofy along the way. I'm all right with it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you definitely you really care more about how you feel than how you look, right? And yeah, I mean, I also think that having, mentors and having role models and having people that are ahead of you to kinda tell you what they did to get to that point is really important. I started Pilates about 10 years ago, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because my mind, wasn't there. I was really in my business. I was really active. Pilates is something you have to really pay close attention. You have to connect your mind, your body, and I couldn't do that. But when I went to surf camp and saw a guy there that was celebrating his 80th birthday, and he was there with his wife who was in her 70s, and they were out there killing it. And I asked him, what's your secret? And he said Pilates. That was all I needed to hear. I went home, signed up for Pilates, and I'm in a different spot in my life where I wanted that. I wanted that feeling, and my mind isn't as cluttered. I'm not as busy as I used to be. And I found myself being able to do it and then feeling the benefits from it and then wanting to do it, right? And having this visual of what my life might look like if I do the right things now. And that was all I needed.
So YouTube has this cool feature where they pick the next video for you, and it's right here on this screen. So I hope you enjoy this next video.